What's going on, everybody? It is the one and only Q from Retro Q Gaming, back in effect as always, and here we are with episode 12 of our lovely little Quack experimental podcast. This one is more of a ever so slight roundup of E3 2019. I wasn't going to do one this week, mainly because pretty much everything, or at least so I thought, was covered in the E3 stuff or in around there. But I do have a little bit of notes that managed to kind of grow into probably what will be a miniature version of this episode. So let's go anyway. We'll start off with our first one. Our one of our most wholesome moments. No, I'm not talking about what's her name, Ikumi Nakamura, or you'll have to forgive me for forgetting her name. I'm not talking about her, but we'll talk about the other one, the other wholesome moment, the other badass moment. Keanu Reeves in Cyberpunk 2077. That's it. That's my point that I wanted to talk about. Keanu Reeves is in Cyberpunk 2077. He was on stage introducing the release date, and it was just so good. It was just so good. That's it. That's it. That's all I have to say. On to our next point. On to actual news and actual stuff to talk about now. So Gung Ho Entertainment had a couple of little interviews and all going out there at the moment, because just before E3 they went out and gave some more info about the Grandia HD collection, and they finally talked a little bit about it and showed a little bit off during some of their interviews and stuff at E3. So the most important thing is they put out some screenshots. This is like a very small topic, but they put out some screenshots, they put out a little video and all as well. It looks good. Some people have been comparing it to the likes of the shitty Final Fantasy remasters with the phone ones that were put on Steam, as well as obviously phones. Now, some people say it looks kind of smeared and blurry like that. I don't think so. I think the artwork looks good. It looks akin to, if you've played the Disgaea series games, it looks akin to those. So I always said that they have to be very careful when moving up with the style of sprites. They were very, very rough sprites back in the PS1. And to move them up without keeping them 100%, I guess we'll call it 32-bit just because it was on the Saturn and the PS1. But they needed to have extra special care. And it looks like they've smoothed it out ever so slightly, but the remastered artwork, the sprites and all, they look great. And I can't wait to play it on there. So the good thing about it is they haven't given a release date yet, which is unfortunate, but they have said it's coming very soon. Very soon being the key words. I'm hoping we'll have it by the end of July, maybe the end of August. Hell, at least if it comes at the end of August, at least then it will come a year after its original announcement. Of course, I think I've said it before in a previous episode, where Grandia 2 HD on PC is being patched and renamed to that one, so if you already own that, or you want to pick it up cheap in the upcoming Steam sale, I would recommend doing that, because Grandia 2 is a great game, and they're going to be selling one separately on PC on Steam as well. The HD bundle is coming to Switch, and they've already ruled out a physical edition for that one. Can't wait. Going to pick it up on PC, play the shit out of it. I love both of those games. And we've got some great news from Square Enix, except it wasn't covered at their E3 press conference, because I already talked about that. And we had a little bit more than what they showed off there. And what Square Enix are looking to do, for all you retro gamers and retro game aficionados out there, they're looking to make their entire back catalogue, that's right, their entire whole back catalogue, available at some point digitally. They're wondering at the moment on how they're going to do it, what's the best way, etc., etc. So, like I said, they are unsure about how to do it. They may be sold individually digitally, they may be sold as collections, they may be sold in bundles, they may be sold in it's so up in the air at the moment, we don't properly know. They have also mentioned the possibility of a streaming style service or a subscription style service. Think along the lines of Google Stadia. Personally, I think that would be absolutely awful. And slightly less awful would be, think of a Square Enix Pass, if you will. Companies are all doing their own subscription stuff now, so let's just say Square Enix are going to bring out their own subscription service, where you have access to every Final Fantasy game, 1 through 9. Or, well, let's maybe not say 1 through 9, that's a bad example. You might have access to, I don't know, what am I looking at? Vagrant Story, Final Fantasy Tactics, I was going to say Dino Crisis, Parasite Eve 1 and 2, a lot of Square Enix games that aren't available sold individually, like on Steam or a console or a phone or whatever. So they might have a service for that, where you might get Chrono Trigger, although that's available on a lot of stuff. You see my point anyway. It's messy, and I understand why Square Enix are having trouble with some of this. And They've also said that some games may be hard to do this with or hard to include and re-release, and some may not be viable at all. And the main reason they've said this is that they get a lot of people out there that are saying, "Oh, why haven't you re-released such and such yet?" And yet they'd apparently love to, apparently being the keyword. But some of the games, and some of the old games in particular, their original code is apparently either lost or they don't know where some of it is, which is very strange. But then again, I guess it makes sense. If you made a game back in 1991, you probably weren't looking ahead and thinking, "Oh yeah, I'm going to need this in 2019, 2020 to resell it on multiple different digital platforms," which is obviously something that didn't exist back then, basically. So, I mean, they gave an example. I forget what game it is off the top of my head, but they gave an example where the guy who had the main code for the game, the only proper full code from the 90s, was on his computer, and he had quit. Now, his computer was still part of the company, but it was like stored away randomly somewhere. They managed to find it and revive the hard drive and get the code back off it. So some of these games might be a little bit prohibitive in that reason, and some of them might take longer, some of them might not even happen at all. But we have to wait and see. I would love if they sold them all individually or possibly in bundles and collections, depending on how they're priced on Steam, or, I mean, hell, you can put them on console as well, but just as long as they come to Steam. I mean, I know the Collection of Mana is a little bit pricey on Switch because it's 3 games. 2 of them are SNES games, and one of them is a Game Boy game. But I mean, one of them is my favorite game of all time, and the other is the main reason I bought it is the first official English translation of Trials of Mana. So you can see my point. But moving on, we've got something that was conspicuously absent from the Xbox conference, and even to an extent the PC gaming conference. It's one I had predicted might make a show at least the Xbox conference, but it didn't show up in either of them. And that game is Gears Tactics. It's basically an XCOM version of Gears of War. It's coming to PC hopefully later this year, but probably not. Most likely next year, to be honest. But anyway, there was a complete no-show at E3 in any way, shape, or form. Rod Ferguson and everyone in charge over at the coalition have come out and they said, yes, it is still in development. The game is not cancelled, but of course, because they're releasing Gears of War 5 in a few months in September of 2019, they wanted the big focus and all the info and everything on that one. So that's their big baby, which makes perfect sense because it's out very soon and hopefully it's good. I can't wait to see the Horde mode when they're going to show it off in, I think it's August. They have like a multiplayer versus thing coming up in June or July, but August is the real one for me because I want campaign, I want Horde. Horde is going to be great when they show it off. The campaign is probably going to be good. It's going to run really well on PC. It's going to look great. I can't wait for that too. One thing I will say though, I really hate that artwork they're using. The kind of snowy background with the characters' heads and what looks like blood coming down. I think that artwork is awful, but hey, I can't even make it better. I can't complain. And speaking of PC games looking great and, well, hopefully running great, we have Cyberpunk 2077. And the really, 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 really good, really great, super excited news that I want to talk about in this one, even if it's only a quick little bit of it. But anyway, it's official, it's confirmed that Cyberpunk 2077 will be partnering with Nvidia to bring out ray tracing into the game. Now, they have posted 4K ray traced in-game screenshots, and they look phenomenal. There's only 2 games I've seen that look as good as this when you completely max them out and run them at a high resolution on a PC. One of those is Final Fantasy 15. The other one is Metro Exodus. When you put on ray tracing and everything in Metro Exodus, granted I couldn't do it on my PC, but I've seen the screenshots and the videos of people who can. Holy crap, it looked great. It looked next gen on my PC as it was, let alone when it looks even better with all of that stuff. It looks insane. Cyberpunk 2077 is absolutely going to be the same way. It's going to be a proper, true, next-gen looking game. And that brings me to another point. I really, really pity the console users who are going to be playing this game, because this game looks gorgeous and it feels like they're going to do themselves a disservice to play the game at such low resolution, low quality, low frame rate and all as well, when the game has so much potential to be gorgeous. All the artists, all the programmers, everyone who brought these worlds to life, they put in all the intricate detail, worked on all the technology and all too, and you're gonna run it on a PS4 and Xbox One? when a game can run at 4K maxed out on PC with ray tracing, among other things. I mean, granted, I can't do that yet, but let's hope Nvidia releases the new 3000 series a few weeks before Cyberpunk 2077 comes out. Lord knows I'll be there with a Ryzen CPU of some sort, 3rd gen Ryzen, and an RTX 3080 Ti just for Cyberpunk. It's going to be, quote, lit fam, unquote. And sticking with PC for the moment, we have some good news coming from Sega. It's basically reconfirming something we already knew, but they're just kind of officially talking about it going forward. So we all know that Sega make the brilliant Yakuza series. It's a series I've only got into recently when I played through Yakuza 0, and I'm going to be very shortly moving on to Yakuza Kiwami. Obviously on PC, they've got amazing PC ports of Yakuza 0, Kiwami, and Kiwami 2. We all know Yakuza 6 was already scheduled to release earlier this year, but it will be releasing at some point later this year. And of course, we're all expecting that the upcoming remasters of 3, 4, and 5 are going to probably be ported to PC as well. Now, back to what I'm talking about. Sega has officially confirmed that they view Yakuza as a multi-platform series. Now, technically, this was already somewhat a multi-platform series because, believe it or not, in Japan, some Yakuza games, I don't remember what ones they were off the top of my head, released on the Wii U. Now, they absolutely flopped. They sold like 1,000 copies at best or something like that. It was an absolute sales disaster, which is why Yakuza was no longer on the Wii U after that and has not been considered for Switch. That, and it would look like the PS2 versions. But anyway, back to the point that I was talking about. So they consider Yakuza a multi-platform series now between PC and PS4, which is fantastic news. Hopefully the delay between future games gets cut down by a significant amount, or maybe even they launch side by side. I know Judgment, which is the kind of Yakuza spin-off that's coming soon, doesn't have a PC version announced, but obviously if this is only being announced and considered now, it makes sense that this one wouldn't hit the immediate effect, but when the next game starts getting developed, it makes more sense in that regard. Now, the cool thing is that they've also said they're open to bringing specifically more Atlas games to PC, which is brilliant because after Catherine Classic was released on PC, its resounding success in a PC port, its critical acclaim, and its sales numbers alone, when you take all of those into consideration, they were very, very happy with it because it did very, very well and was very, very well received. So they're looking at that and they say, okay, people want Atlas games on PC. People have been asking for Atlas games on PC. Let's give them Atlas games on PC. This also ties back into something that they've talked about several times about how they were looking to make previously console exclusive series bring over to the PC as well. They had specifically listed 3 different series when they always referenced that. One of them was Shenmue. Obviously, Shenmue is now on PC in both 1, 2, and 3. They also referenced Yakuza. We now have 3 of the, 7 Yakuza games, with obviously the rest of them going to be coming soon. Actually, we have 3 of them. One of them is coming soon, and then the rest of them will be there too. And the other one they always talked about was Persona, Atlus's basically main flagship franchise. I swear to God, if one of you says, "Oh, it's Shin Megami Tensei's their flagship," I will end you. No, you know what? I won't end you. I will change your heart. That's how I'm going to work it. Anyway, back to the point that I was talking about. So they have specifically said they're more interested in bringing more Atlas games over as well. So between them potentially bringing over more Atlas games, as well as being more focused on Yakuza as a multi-platform series between PS4 and PC, that's fantastic news. I can't wait to see more Yakuza on PC. I can't wait to get around to Yakuza Kiwami, eventually Yakuza Kiwami 2, 3, 4, 5, and Yakuza 6. And then, of course, Persona as well. Now, our next little piece that we want to talk about here is a double-edged sword. It's both good news and bad news. So there are now 23 extra additions with this latest update to Xbox One's backwards compatibility. However, there's a big caveat with that. Xbox One backwards compatibility is now finished. There's reasons for it. We'll get to it now in a minute. But anyway, what we have here is there are 3 different lists I want to read from to give you everything that's covered in this new update. So they have added 23 new updates and 23 new games to the Xbox One backwards compatibility, ranging from the following games on OG Xbox 180: Armed and Dangerous, Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb, Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy, Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow, Chaos Theory, Double Agent, Unreal Championship 2, The Leandri Conflict. Xbox 360 games include Azura's Wrath, Battlefield 2 Modern Combat, Enchanted Arms, that's a good game by the way, Enslaved Odyssey to the West, Far Cry Classic, Far Cry Instincts Predator, Infinite Undiscovery, Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands, Skate, Star Ocean: The Last Hope, Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, Syndicate, 2 Human, and Unreal Tournament 2, as well as existing backwards compatibility titles which are going to receive Xbox One X enhancement patches, including Banjo-Kazooie, Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, Banjo-Tooie, Cameo Elements of Power, Perfect Dark Zero, Viva Pinata, and Viva Pinata Trouble in Paradise. Interestingly enough, those are all rare games. Anyway, back to what I want to talk about here. Anyway, what they're doing here. The reason why they're essentially finishing Xbox One backwards compatibility is they want to make sure everything on the current backwards compatible list works properly and is ready to go on Project Scarlet when that comes out. Be it maybe the Xbox One X enhanced stuff, or maybe everything in general will be getting boosts and all on Project Scarlet. We don't know how that's going to work just yet, but not to mention that they need to make sure that all the Xbox One games will run on Project Scarlet as well, possibly even taking advantage of all the power for better frame rate, better resolution, maybe patches for better textures or whatever. Probably not, but you see my point. So it makes sense why they're doing it. There's over 600 games. I want to say it's about 611 games in the Xbox One backwards compatibility program from Xbox 360 and OG Xbox 180. So that's impressive within itself. I found the Xbox One backwards compatibility fantastic. I've played so much Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3 HD on my Xbox, as well as a bunch of other games too, but that's the one that really sticks out in my mind. But anyway, there's also another little interesting bit that they announced that I've left off here until right now. They're giving away, to kind of celebrate all of this as well, 2 Human. You know, that awful game made by Silicon Knights, or as I like to call them, Silicon Shites. But yeah, them. Now, despite it being a crap game and what was kind of technically a lost license game, I'm just remembering that Silicon Knights used to exist, unfortunately. Oh, but Q, they made Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. Yeah, that shitty remake of MGS1. Who wants that? But anyway, Silicon Knights, if you don't know, they were originally sued by Epic Games because of the improper use of their engine and license for it. They lost the court case, and they were ordered to recall every one of those games that were still available in the wild and destroy them all. So it's technically a lost license game in a way, but Microsoft are giving it away for free somehow. I don't know how all that works. But anyway, it's, yeah, play it or be disappointed by it if you want. But I think this is cool. I think that this list is good. I know once these games were added to backwards compatibility, I reinstalled on my Xbox One X the original 3 Splinter Cell games. Splinter Cell 1, Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow, and Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. Popped the disc in, downloaded the digital versions of them, and now they're on here ready to play. Funny enough, when you boot them up, they're in 4.3. Ooh, it's kind of funny to see. I'm hopefully gonna get back and play them. That's my main thing about it. So I really do want. But anyway, there's a good stuff on there. I'm gonna boot up Perfect Dark Zero and Perfect Dark to see how those look as well in native 4K. But hopefully it can do something for the frame rate in Perfect Dark Zero as well. Moolat. At least Perfect Dark is 60 FPS. And back to some gamer victory news here at the moment, because we all remember that absolute train wreck that launched almost a year ago, Fallout 76. Now, you might remember that anyone who bought the Power Armor edition of Fallout 76 was originally promised a canvas bag with their big expensive, I think it was €250 collector's edition, Well, we all know that they originally advertised all these canvas bags, sent out all these high quality canvas bags to all their YouTubers and Twitch partners, media outlets, all that stuff. And then, of course, the people who actually paid for the game got ripped off by shitty little nylon bags. That's not even to mention how they get ripped off by paying for the game, but you see my point. Now, of course, you might remember that after much outcry and many complaints and all that, Bethesda tried to satiate everybody by saying, hey, you know what? We promised you this stuff, but you didn't get it in your big fancy collector's edition that you paid a lot of money for. So here's €5 worth of digital currency that you can only use in our game. 500 atoms. Which is a joke, especially because I remember someone pointed it out at one point that after the 500 atoms were given to people, there's a skin you can buy in the in-game store that it's like maybe 1,200 atoms or 2,400, and it was a postman outfit which had a canvas bag which you couldn't buy with their little shitty refund they gave you. It was awful. It was awful. Anyway. But eventually Bethesda finally committed to manufacturing the canvas bags, proper actual canvas bags, and getting it all done. And that's actually happening. It's finally really happening. Anyone who had put in a support ticket about it the entire time, they will get their canvas bag. You just have to contact them with your previous details and your account number and your previous ticket number and all that stuff, and they will finally, almost a year after launch, send you canvas bags. Now, that may sound very petty. I may sound very sarcastic in that regard. Absolutely not. I 100% agree with these people, and I 100% support them, because they didn't get what they paid for. They paid for, among other things, a canvas bag, and got advertised a canvas bag, and in the box they found a shitty little nylon bag. You have to fight back against this stuff, people, because if you don't, companies will see it and they will realize that they can take more and more and more and rip you off more and more and more and questionably advertise you stuff more and more and more, be it in-game, out-of-game, physical, digital, whatever it is. Companies love when people just roll over and accept this and don't put up a fight. So I am so happy. Granted, it doesn't affect me in a direct sense. I didn't buy the game, although technically it did come free with my Xbox One X. I've just never installed it, and even then it was a digital copy. But I don't get one of these canvas bags, but I do support all the people out there who fought for their canvas bags, who fought for what they paid for, and they made the company buckle under the pressure, which is so good, and that's a win in my book. Now, next up is the only actual big topic in this podcast episode that it's going to be a big one. Now, we all know that during the PC gaming conference at E3 2019, Shenmue 3 was revealed to be now an Epic Store exclusive, after all this time of being advertised as a Steam version of the game. Now, there's so much to say about this, and there's so much to question and unpack about this, so let's just buckle up. It's going to be a bit of a mess for this one, okay? But originally announced in 2015 as a Kickstarter, they had always said it was coming to PC. Now, at the time, PC, when a game came to PC, unless it was specifically an Ubisoft game, in which case it would still come to Uplay as well as Steam, unless it was an Origin game, which means it would just come exclusively to Origin if it was EA. Now, really at the time, there was only one main storefront, essentially, which was Steam. Steam is still the biggest one, despite what Epic Games are trying to do, but Steam is still the biggest store out there. So, when they originally announced the Kickstarter, all PC versions of the game just said PC versions. However, as time went by, they started specifically wording it and specifically listing it in multiple different emails, multiple different backer kits, multiple different updates, everything. They specifically said Steam, 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 Steam. Now, it was fair to assume, even in 2015, before it said Steam, that it was Steam. Okay? Now, before we go any further, I'm going to say this as well, okay? Many people always forget that they hyper focus in on my lack of love for the Epic Game Store, but they don't listen to why I dislike it, okay? So before we go any further, I'll explain this. I am not adverse to different storefronts, different digital storefronts, as long as they are comparative in quality and features, if that makes sense. If you were to come out And there was 10 launchers, and 8 of them all had the exact same features. They just had exclusive games. Fine, fair enough. But as long as you have the 2 other remaining ones, one of them is just absolute bare minimum, bare bones, and absolute crap. I'm not going to support that. That's not a comparative launcher. It's not a comparative experience. And then the other one is doing all the shady underhanded stuff. Again, not the same deal. So I'm not adverse to multiple different launchers. Again, as long as they're comparative in features or quality, or what they offer, essentially. Now, think of it that way when I dislike the Epic Game Store. Now, moving back to Shenmue 3. So, of course, they did announce that it was moving over to Epic Game Store exclusively for 1 year, and then it will be coming back to Steam. Now, bear in mind, this was announced in June of 2019, several months before the game's release. The game had a Steam page for pretty much all of this year. In fact, I might have even been late last year, late 2018. And it was originally supposed to, well, I say originally, but it was slated to come out at the end of August. Then it was delayed to some point in November. I don't remember the exact date off the top of my head, but November of 2019. So here we are, potentially 3 months from launch. I know it was delayed like right before it, so let's just go through. What's that? 3 months, 4, 5, 6, 6 months before launch. After almost a year of Steam page, and not to mention multiple years of references to Steam before it. And then it gets pulled exclusively for 1 year, timed exclusive, on the Epic Game Store. Now, you can see why some people are upset about this. Now, there are all types of weird things going on in this situation with this game. Mainly because, first off, they said, no refunds will be given, this, that, and the other. It was basically just a big fuck you to anyone who was upset about it and was not happy with the situation. And then they changed their tune a little bit because they probably realized that what they said first sounded really bad. And now they said that they're listening to feedback, they're listening to everyone, the Kickstarter, blah, blah, blah. And those people, they're trying to come to a resolution, or they're weighing their options and all this stuff. Now, I'll get to what my suggestion would be in a moment. But before we do that, let me explain some of the reasons why people will be unhappy about this. I know I personally backed a physical PC edition, which was supposed to come with a disc and a CD key in the box for Steam. Now, it's just going to be a physical box with no disc. From the wording and all, there's going to be no disc, and it's just going to be an Epic Game Store key. See, there's some problems here. But on top of all of that, it's the Epic Game Store. Like I mentioned earlier, comparative features, shady business practices, etc., etc. Now, I will say this, at the moment, we don't know if Epic Games provided them a giant bonus for physically coming over exclusively to their store. We do know that there is the possibility that either Deep Silver or Ease.net has opted to do this themselves because they use the Unreal Engine, and Epic Games will waive the Unreal Engine licensing fees it's a kind of a profit sharing how they do it. They will waive those completely if you launch exclusively on the Epic Game Store. So that's another reason why they could potentially have done it. But we don't know that just yet. But the big problem with all of this is when you look at all the companies involved. This game raised the most amount of money for a video game on Kickstarter ever. And then there's all this other money coming in from Sony, from Deep Silver, from probably even Epic Games. And the people, essentially the fans, the people who allegedly, supposedly at least anyway, helped fund the game, are last on the list of who to please. There's no benefit whatsoever to the gamer to release on the Epic Game Store. No benefit whatsoever. In fact, there's a detriment because of the always online requirement. Steam doesn't have an always online requirement, by the way. There is a proper offline mode. But you can see the point. If you disconnect, if your internet gets disconnected, your internet goes off, or there's a hiccup, the Epic Game Store goes down, you get kicked off game. I'm not sure if you get kicked off game, but obviously, as far as I know, from what I read, you get kicked off games and can't play them if the internet connection to the servers are lost. But anyway, that's from what I understand. I have no personal experience with that. That's one problem. these people, they backed for specific version, specific client, specific whatever. They feel betrayed because they have been. Now, here's a big problem that many people have with the Epic Games Store, myself included as well. Epic Games are bringing console level practices, console exclusive practices, console ecosystem practices. They're bringing all of these into the PC market. Now, the PC market is an open platform. That's what makes it the best platform, because there's so much choice, so much freedom, so much everything. We have the option. But Epic Games has taken that away with console level stuff. They're bringing in closed practice, closed ecosystem practices. Closed practice practices. Yeah, good one, Q. But you see my point here. That's why so many of us are upset about this. I can't really explain it too much to any of you guys out there that are primarily console gamers, because there's no real comparison. The closest thing I could say would be the equivalent of, let's just say, a month before launch. If you were supposed to get a PS4 copy, let's just say a month before launch, oh, now it's coming to Xbox One and we cancel the PS4 version. It's not 100% the same thing, but you see the kind of stuff I'm getting at. It's very hard to explain if you're not a maybe not even a primary PC gamer, but if you're not a heavy PC gamer, or a long time PC gamer, you might not understand. So you can see why a lot of people are upset about this, because we should be. We backed it. We supposedly helped create the game. We supposedly funded the game. And then they're fucking over everyone with this. Now, a lot of PS4 players out there in the community, they're looking at it and they're saying, oh, what's the big deal, this, that, and the other. What I said a minute ago, you guys just don't get it. I mean, this is not an insult as much as it might sound like it. You're used to stuff in a one closed ecosystem way. We're used to the world. And now we don't have that option because companies are trying to do what they do with you, with us. See what I mean? This is some bullshit. Now, I don't know how this is going to change. I don't know how this is going to go down. The game is going to launch in November on the Epic Games Store as well as PS4, and it's going to come to Steam and other digital storefronts a year later. What do I think would be a proper resolution for this? Because I'm in two minds about this. In fact, to the point where I'm a huge Shenmue fan. I have Dreamcast copies of the first two games. Obviously, the first two games. I have an OG Xbox copy of the second game. I'm obviously wanted to back and get a physical PC collector's or PC version for that one. There's an actual proper limited edition for Shenmue 3. And now, just because of this whole situation, when that one has already gone up for pre-order, I don't want it. I don't want it now. I'm just so apathetic, and I'm just so burnt out on the entire situation now. Any of you guys who know me from the Shenmue stuff, think about how extreme it is almost for me to be made feel like that. To the point where I don't want to buy a Shenmue 3 limited collector's edition on PS4 or PC. Think about that. I want to play the game. I want Yu Suzuki's story. I want Yu Suzuki to be able to continue the story of Shenmue and Ryo Hazuki. But I don't want to be fucked over like this. I don't want companies to get the message that it's okay to fuck people over like this. So what do? Do I pull all my support? If a lot of the PC users, if we were to all get refunds, for example, the game is in trouble. The game is in trouble sales-wise. There probably won't be a Shenmue 4 after that, let alone anything beyond it. Because that's a lot of people. A lot of people won't be happy about that. Now, so what do I think would be an acceptable outcome for this? Well, I'm going to look at it this way. Let's say anyone who backed a PC version of the game, be it a physical edition or be it a digital edition, give them the option for a Steam key day one in November at launch, or give them the option for an Epic Games key. That makes perfect sense. There'll be a lot of people out there who wanted to buy it at post-launch, or maybe wanted to pre-order it closer to launch on Steam. Those people are unfortunately a little bit out of luck. But when you think about it, they didn't back it, so this doesn't really apply to them, at least not as much. So I think that's what they should do. I think they should give the option for Steam keys day and date with the Epic Game Key. You don't need to give them both. That's asking a bit much. Like for me personally, I would be happy if they said, okay, let's just say it launches November 14th. I don't remember the exact date. Let's say they sent me an email and they said, okay, you backed a PC edition of the game. You can have on November 14th an Epic Game Store key or a Steam key. Which would you like? I would take a Steam key. Thank you very much. Will I support Shenmue 4 and all going forward? At that point, I don't know. Whoops, sorry, microphone. It's just such a bad situation. There's so much negativity around it as well. And I mean rightfully so. Like granted, there's so much love in the Shenmue community for the community and Shenmue in general, and now it's basically, I won't say falling apart. There's a lot of people upset about it. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. And yeah, it feels bad, man. We'll see how it goes. We have a few more months before the game launches, and we'll see what the Kickstarter updates and all happen too. If it doesn't go well, I don't know what I'm going to do. Do I pull support? Do I miss the games? Do I pirate the games? I don't know. I just don't know. But sticking with PC news and moving away from something depressing like that to something actually good and a proper technical advantage, a proper technical evolution, if you will. We have LG. We all know LG, the company. And they have now potentially, I say there's a big potential, I say that in there. I'll cover that now in a second. But they have potentially made the world's first 1 millisecond response time IPS monitors. They are what they're called nano IPS monitors. They're rated with a 1 millisecond gray to gray response time, which is the main standard. It also adheres to the proper testing body, strictly rules and regulations and whatnot. So, you know, some people can say they fudged the numbers and all. Don't worry, I'll get to that now in a second. But there's some basis for it. Now, there's two models that they're going to release for this. There's a 38-inch model with a resolution of 3840 by 1440. So it's one of those horrible ultra widescreen monitors. Absolutely awful. I hate them. Don't know how anyone can use them. Brightness is rated at 450 nits, which is pretty low, kind of. Refresh rate of 144 Hz, overclockable to 175 Hz. It has HDR. It adheres to the Display HDR 400 certification. And it's got proper G-Sync support. In the case of the 38-inch module, or 38-inch one, it has the physical G-Sync module inside it, incorporated into it. It's got one HDMI port, one display port. It has USB 3.0, 1 up and 2 down. And it's going to launch, there's no date on it yet, but it's going to launch for $2,000, $1,999.99. And there's a 27-inch model as well, which is a lot more reasonable and probably a lot more attractive to many people. It launches with a resolution of 2560 by 1440, so it's 1440p, brightness of 350 nits, refresh rate of 144 Hz, non-overclockable, and it's a FreeSync monitor that is G-Sync compatible. So it is important to note that this one, the 27-inch monitor, does not have a physical G-Sync module inside it. It's AMD FreeSync, but it is G-Sync compatible. You know how that one's going lately. What I don't understand on this one is because this one has HDR10, which is better than Display HDR 400. So this one that confuses me completely. 2 HDMI ports, 1 display port, USB 3.0, 1 up, 2 down, and it's going to launch for a reasonably priced $499.99. So, what do I think about these anyway? Well, it's very promising that IPS technology could potentially be down to 1 millisecond response time. Now, I will say this, okay? We have to wait and see for people, for outlets, for media, for tests, whatever. We have to wait till they get their hands on all of this to see if it properly recognizes, and it's all true, and the numbers aren't fudged, that it is a true 1 millisecond response time. Now, this is great for me because in my case, I've always been complaining that PC monitor technology has kind of been on a standstill. The main reason for that is IPS had hit basically a ceiling in this case it looks to be maybe a glass ceiling. But IPS monitors could not get fast enough. Sure, they have superior color range because they're IPS panels, that's how they work. They have superior viewing angles, but no one really gives a shit about viewing angles because you're going to be sitting in front of it. But On top of that, the big one is at high frame rates, which many of these monitors would always advertise, 120 hertz, 144 hertz, 175 hertz, whatever, you would have an awful response time of like 4 or 5 or 6 milliseconds, which completely defeats the purpose of having an extremely high refresh rate. I'll give you a perfect example. This monitor here it's not IPS, it's a 144 hertz monitor, and it's a 1 millisecond response time, and it is fucking glorious. I love this monitor so much. It's still one of the highest quality monitors you can get out there for high frame rate, high resolution gaming. My monitor here, my 4K monitor that I got a few months ago, is 60 hertz. It is 4 millisecond response time, 60 hertz, and it's awful in that regard for playing games on. Now, it's okay for console stuff because it has AMD FreeSync, but it's still, you can tell, even when you're using it when I'm using it for regular use, for like watching my streams and just if I'm like monitoring whatever, using it for screen space, you can tell 4 milliseconds. When I sit it here, I've been using this monitor for 5 years on 1 milliseconds. When I go to this one, you can see it straight away. There's a huge difference. Now, it used to have to pick. Now, granted, this is a VA panel and not an IPS. This one is IPS, this one is TN, that one's VA. But used to have to make a choice. Would you get a TN panel, which has lower quality color range, but it has a faster refresh rate, and it has a faster, not technically, it has a faster response time, because generally you could get the same refresh rate. Or would you go with an IPS panel, where you would have superior color range, but you would have an inferior response time? So, I've always been a big opponent of people will just blanketly say IPS is better, which is factually untrue, but it's late. So you can see why I'm excited about this. I've always been unhappy that PC monitor technology had become kind of stagnant. I mean, hell, where are OLED monitors? Give me an OLED, 1 millisecond, 144 hertz, G-Sync module equipped HDR10 plus monitor, and I would gladly give you 2,500 of my crazy Monopoly money euro just for that, because it's worth it. But we don't get that kind of stuff. We get drip-fed incremental upgrades every so often. Maybe it was because of technological limitations, which have hopefully been overcome now, because if other developers and other manufacturers can work and do this, maybe license stuff from them, or come up with their own variants now that this stuff exists, well, a lot of people are going to be happy. It'll no longer be a choice between proper refresh rate and proper response time versus color gamut. I always forget if it's gamut or gamut, but the color range, there you go. So you can get the best of both worlds thanks to this technology potentially laying the groundwork for everyone else. And that is what true PC Master Race is about. It's innovation, it's pushing technology forward, and I am fucking happy for that one. And last up, I just want to quickly talk about something that I covered during the Nintendo announcement at E3 anyway, but I just want to praise it one more time. The collection of mana actually exists. It's so damn good. I've been playing it digitally on my Switch already. Absolutely love it. Naturally, as Secret of Mana is my favorite game ever, I'm working through that one first, but I'm so excited to move on to the first official translation of Trials of Mana, aka Secret of Mana 2 / Suikoden Densetsu 3. I can't wait to finally move on there. There's also going to be a physical edition. Square Enix are doing a limited run print of it, a single print, later in August, which I can't wait for. I already have it pre-ordered, and I just can't wait to have that too. And it also gets me even more hyped and excited when I do get around to playing the original 16-bit Trials of Mana for the upcoming remake next year of Trials of Mana, the 3D remake. It looks considerably better than the shitty Secret of Mana remake from, was it early this year? I can't remember if it was early this year or last year. No, it was last year. It was last year. But it looks considerably better. It's a proper 3D one, not just from the same style, but in 3D, if that makes sense. I'm really hyped for Trials of Mana 3D remake. That one's coming out on PS4, PC, and Switch, even though it was only shown at launch or at announcement on the Switch one, but it is coming to all three platforms. Naturally, I'll be getting the PC version. If they do release a physical version, I'll probably buy that too, at least on the PS4 anyway. And yeah, that's it. I'm super hyped for it, super excited for it. I'm loving it so far, and I highly recommend everyone out there try it too. It's quality stuff. So before we finish up the episode, we just round out with our usual little ending. So what am I doing? What am I playing? Well, like I just covered a second ago, naturally, the main thing I'm focused on right now is playing Secret of Mana and Trials of Mana as well. They're going to be the two of them. I'm going to do both games. I don't know what story I'm going to do when it comes to Trial of Mana. Part of me wants to play Hawkeye, mainly because that's my big story that I'm always doing the most time with, and I want to see. Part of me wants to see anyway how it's going to look in the official translation. But at the same time, it's been so long since I've done the other stories, and they've been so infrequent when I do those stories that I want to see. They're less fresh in my mind. There's some spots in there that I can't remember, so I have to see. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it just yet. I gave up playing Final Fantasy IV. I finished it before a long, long time ago, of course, but I was recently playing it to try get back into it and try just play through it again after I did Final Fantasy VI recently too. I just couldn't get back into Final Fantasy IV. I don't know what it was. It wasn't that I wasn't it wasn't that I disliked it when I was playing it. I just couldn't get into it. I don't know if it's a bunch of situations and everything that's going on at once, but I just couldn't get back into it. So I figured instead of forcing myself to go through it, spreading myself too thin by trying to play 4 or 5 games at once, I just pack it up, maybe come back to it in a few months or at some point down the line next year or whenever it is. Which is a shame because it is one of my favorite Final Fantasy games. Although when I did play 6 again recently, I was reminded that I was always kind of 50-50 between Final Fantasy 4 and 6. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Final Fantasy 6 at this point. But other than that, we're still going with Borderlands 2. We finished all the new DLCs. We're working on the getting to level 80, which is the new level cap. And we found out that once you hit 80, you can redo the Digistruct peak OP levels. Previously, it was a 72 cap with 8 OP levels. Now it's an 80 cap with 10 OP levels. So we're going to work on it. We're going to focus. We have the DLC done. We're going to go back, do a bunch of side quests that we kind of skipped over because we didn't need them. Stuff like that. That'll help us boost up the level as much as possible. Then we can hit Digistruct peak, get the OP levels up, and we just kill the shit out of shit because, well, that's what we do. Other than that, the only real thing I'm playing, many of you are probably going to laugh at this, but the only real thing I'm playing other than that is something I couldn't play again until recently. You probably already know that I used to play a lot of Pokemon Go. I would on the way to work or sometimes when I'm going outside in general, I would just play it with me instead of just walking around in silence or bored or texting or looking at the internet or whatever. I used to spoof when I got home as well. I had a spare Android phone. I have my old phone was a HTC One M8S. I factory reset it and I was just spoofing on that for the lulz. They eventually blocked it and they eventually just got rid of all that and I could no longer spoof on it. Now, just the other day, I was given a new work phone. Yes, it's a fucking horrible iPhone. I can't stand it. Ugh. But it gave me the chance to spoof. So there's basically nothing on this phone. The only app I have installed on this phone is my is Pokemon Go and the iSpoof, because I spoof for Go because that's what you do and that's what you spoof with. So yeah, that's I've been spoofing a lot of that ever since yesterday morning. But that's basically it. Oh, by the way, iPhones are so terrible to use. I don't know how people do it. I mean, Android for life, but I don't know how people do it. But that's it. That's it. That's the end of our little post E3 episode 12 of our Quack Experimental Podcast. As always, I want to thank everyone for coming out, joining me. Hopefully you stuck around for all of this. Hopefully you liked it. Hopefully you don't feel the need to leave a dislike. Hint, hint. But anyway, let me know how. Feel free to let me know and slide into the DMs or a comment section below. I'm always terrible at these outros for some reason. I can do it fine in the video, but it just doesn't work for me. Anyway, you can slide into the DMs, leave it in the comment section below if you find out anything interesting that you might think piques my interest. Other than that, feel free to hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video, and while you're at it, why not head on over, hit the subscribe button, even ring the little notification bell, because then you can get the notification for when one of these goes live every Saturday or Sunday night, usually every Sunday unless something special comes up. But that's basically it. We are out of here. I want to thank everyone for watching as always, and remember, winners don't play switchboards.